28 years later, the third film in this franchise has arrived all these years later as a potential return to form with Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, the visionary duo behind the original, back at the helm. But did it live up to the hype? In this video, I'll break down why this long-awaited sequel is a bold, sometimes brilliant, but undeniably flawed film. I'll analyze what works, what doesn't, why its tone and editing may divide fans, how the trailers may have misled audiences, and what that wild ending could mean for the franchise going forward. Some spoilers ahead in case you haven't seen the movie yet. Now, my immediate reaction when I walked out of the theater was a very conflicted one, where I had thoughts of the positives that I got out of the movie and then some of the negatives. I never once leaned harder in one direction of how I felt while watching. Once it ended, I gathered my thoughts as best as I could, and that's where I came to the conclusion that it was a good film, but a very flawed one. 28 years later knows what it is, but kind of doesn't at the same time. The first half knew what it was, and I loved it. And then the second half kind of didn't know what it was trying to be, and I was mixed about it. The story and the writing as a whole are a mixed bag for me as far as how they were handled. The action is tense as shit, and the movie does not pull punches with being as graphic as it was with the violence and the nudity. If you are the kind of person out there who likes to say that you are admired by when people don't hold back, then you might like this movie in that regard. It is way more violent than either of the other two movies that have been made, and you can't argue with that. The visuals, gruesome practical effects, and cinematography are stunning, and I can't believe this was all shot on an iPhone. Obviously, an iPhone that is retrofitted with much more upgraded technology to help make it look better than it actually is when you are shooting it regularly. On a technical level, it's a very, very solid movie. I could imagine that a lot of post-production work went into making this look the way that it did, and they were able to put together a $50 to $60 million budget just off that alone. Along with the cinematography and visuals being the best parts of the movie, I would also give massive credit to the actors. Alfie Williams as Spike is the main character, and he does a fantastic job being the lead of his first ever film, which is incredible. Hats off to him. He plays a kid who is being pushed into a role of life that is new to him within the world of an infected quarantine zone of the UK. Aaron Taylor-Johnson plays his gruff and hardened father, and Jodie Comer plays his mother, who throughout the whole of the movie is dealing with a sickness that they can't identify because they don't have any doctors on the island. Ralph Fiennes plays the very doctor they are looking for and represents the portion of the second half of the movie's story where our characters all meet. There is no better way to transition into talking about this next part of the video, because where some people might find the divisiveness of 28 years later as perplexing is how they perceived the trailers in what they were communicating to the audience of what could have been expected from the movie. Both trailers' biggest strength might have ended up being its biggest weakness. If you go back and watch both of them, you'll notice that none of the story is ever truly shown. You don't get a single idea of what you are getting into with regards to Spike's journey, his mother's sickness, and so on, and having seen the movie, I can definitely confirm that. That's why I say that they have that big weakness to them, because their strength is that it didn't show anything, and it made you want to think more about what you would be getting into. A wild and tension-filled thrill ride where the majority of the movie would probably be focusing on our main characters trying to avoid the infected that remain. Infected, might I add, that have now evolved and turned into something that might seem scarier than the versions of Rage infected that we saw in the original film. I've been saying it since that first trailer came out, but it's one of the best trailers I think ever made for a horror movie, and yet I think what might hurt people for seeing the movie is that they will feel like it actually misled them into getting a story and characters that are far from what they expected, and leads to them having their expectations be met with a cold shoulder. Where you will also find this divide is how people will perceive the tone of the movie, and also its editing style that is very unique to Danny Boyle as the director. It stays true to what the original film did with editing, but at times maybe goes a little overboard, which certainly suits Danny Boyle with how he went about directing 28 Days Later. Many people will complain completely forget it, but that first film was also very heavy on that kind of editing style that is visualized within this new movie. At the time, back in the day, it was a very unique way to tell the story, but also effectively showcase a zombie movie that actually makes people scared to this day and still holds up. In 28 years later, I'd say, given how far off it's been since we got a movie in this franchise, new viewers will absolutely be taken aback by how Danny Boyle treats that element of the filmmaking process. That's why I put in the thumbnail the question, is it too much? Was Danny trying too hard? Or was he simply just upholding the formula that he brought over from doing that first original film back in the early 2000s? He brings over a new editor this time around with the franchise in John Harris, who has worked with Danny on many of his other movies, but wasn't there for 28 Days Later. So there is a possibility that Danny this time around took over the reins on the editing a little bit more, and for some people, the hardcore fans of the franchise included, might feel that it was a bit off and messed with the tone. You combine this with the writing of Alex Garland, who also made his return from the original film, you can definitely see that there is a vision these filmmakers want to bring over that wasn't realized many years ago when it had been rumored for so long that a 28 months movie would probably get made but never came to fruition. Whether you believe that the vision was fully realized is up to interpretation, and in my opinion, I do believe that aspects of this movie's story probably needed another rewrite in the storyboard. The story of the mom with regards to her sickness is the driving force of the second half of the movie, and along with that also comes somewhat of a tonal shift as other characters start popping up, like Ralph Fiennes as the doctor who helps her identify the sickness, and then a soldier named Eric, who is a part of a Swedish squad of soldiers who find their way on the island and are attacked by infected, leaving him as the sole survivor. And yet, the character is only in the movie for not even 10 or so minutes in what feels like an attempt to flesh out the world, but at what cost only for him to leave so soon after he arrives. Even Jodie Comer as this character and her story feels like it should have had more focus to it with regards to her being with the family and Spike specifically. He has a realization after the first half ended which sets him off on his journey with his mom to find out what's wrong with her. There is a very sweet and heartfelt story within their relationship as mother and son, and I feel like maybe that should have been the main selling point and other elements may have needed less of a focus. Basically, what I'm trying to say with all of this is that it does feel like the script needed to be tightened up a little bit on where the focus was. There is definitely a clear focus on developing characters within the story. It's just that the end goal felt like there were obstacles in the way for us to get there. This is why I believe the first movie is the best, plain and simple. It was made during a time where people did not know what this world was. It was new to them in terms of the filmmaking aspects, the running zombies had not fully been seen before, and the story and characters are linear enough just to the point where there is a much better focus to it. You knew straight from the jump that the end goal was to see our characters try and get out of London and into the mainland, as far away from the biggest portions of infected that were left. Once you knew what the deal was with them, everything that was left for you was to learn more about who these people were, and then see that eventual ending with the soldiers that flips the story on its head and makes you even more invested. 28 years later takes it into a completely different direction. The first half was a buildup of some of our characters while getting us reacquainted with the world, and then the second half was the actual main story that you were there to follow. Again, hence the idea that the focus and the messiness of the script probably could have been retuned just a little bit. Danny Boyle and Alex Garland are also two filmmakers who are very heavily influenced by putting a lot of commentary and themes within their movies. Alex Garland has done that a lot within his own movies that he's written and directed, and the same goes for Danny Boyle, even when Danny Boyle is not working with Alex together. These themes are the other reasons why they make the stories the way they do with each of their respective movies that they have made. 28 Days Later, to this day, garners that heavily with how many fans have speculated and theorized what the movie is truly trying to say. What do the rage infected represent? What do the soldiers at the end say about humanity in the world like this? It's one of the biggest reasons why that movie has garnered a cult classic following. They do some of that here within 28 Years Later that sometimes can be a bit on the nose with how they interject old film reels of past history from the medieval times or World War II and whatnot to show what life is like in the present. This kind of reminds me a little bit of stuff stuff that a guy like Bong Joon-ho has done as a director in a movie like The Host that I just watched recently for the first time, which is a movie that offers a critique of governments in how they handle environmental disasters. 28 Years Later even snuck in a few shots from 28 Weeks Later, which many people might not notice, but I have a keen eye for these things, and I recognized where they were from. I think this is another aspect for the new viewers of this franchise, where they are not going to understand what the filmmakers are trying to do, and it might put them off a bit, but like I said, if you are a hardcore lover of these movies and the filmmakers, then you might like that stuff. I think that also goes for the last part of this video to discuss, which is the ending of the movie. Oh man, this is something I certainly did not ever expect to see within this movie, and yet at the same time, it is the thing that has split the audience up the most. So at the end, after Spike splits from his community and dad on the island, takes back the infected baby that they fostered, and his mom dies of her cancer, he sets off on a lone journey embracing who he has grown to be, which in some ways is his own hardened person like how his dad was. He is taking on infected all by himself, and then the moment comes. A bunch of people dressed in multicolored tracksuits show up and take on the other infected coming after him, one of whom is played by the actor Jack O'Connell. And if you just so happen to recognize that face, it's because he also recently was in another horror movie called Sinners, which is one of the year's most popular horror films where he played the main vampire villain. He shows up out of nowhere with this gang of his to set up what seems to be an aspect of the story for the next movie. His character Jimmy was shown right from the beginning within this scene, as you see in the trailer, where he is this kid right here amongst this group of other kids. Their place in the Scottish Highlands is overrun by infected, and he is the sole survivor. This ending goes to show that he managed to find a way to grow up within the non-quarantined areas with this other group of people who seemingly are their own faction within the world. It's a very cliche thing that you see in a lot of zombie apocalypse stories on film, and so they are the newest version of a faction that is going to return for the new movie next year called The Bone Temple, directed by Nia DaCosta, which might also see the return of the Doctor character played by Ralph Fiennes. This ending though, man, it took me and so many others off guard. I probably won't even have a picture to show you of it in the video, but it does come off as a bit of the wild and weird side of Danny Boyle and Alex Garland's style of writing and filmmaking. This is what Danny said when he saw what the ending was for 28 Years Later as Alex showed it to him.
So when I read the screenplay that Alex sent, there were these characters that appeared at the end of the film called The Jimmies, and it is shocking. It returns you to the fact that this is a horror film, but not in the way you might be expecting. They go on to dominate the second film. I thought this is the most original piece of writing I've seen since Clockwork Orange. That's what I thought. That's honestly what I thought.
So yeah, these characters are going to be in a lot of the next movie, and I have a feeling that might turn some people off, but we don't know what's going to happen yet, and so that's how the ending of the movie sets up the future. They kind of also represent the Teletubbies inspiration that Danny Boyle apparently had for making these movies in the first place. I'm not even kidding. Please correct me if I have misinterpreted what he has said about that. And funny enough, it's also like how with a movie like Sinners, Ryan Coogler, the director, said that Puss in Boots, an animated kids movie of all things, is what inspired him to make his villain played by Jack O'Connell. The coincidences are all there, but that's just how it is, I guess. One last point that I wanted to bring up. Will Cillian Murphy's character also show up along with Naomi Harris? Cillian is an executive producer on this new movie and is rumored to be showing up in the flesh in one of the next two films. So I think that could really get fans interested if they manage to get these films off the ground and people go out to see them. And there you have it. That is my commentary and analysis of 28 Years Later. As you can tell, I was mixed on a lot of stuff, but I lean more positive because I did enjoy watching it. What do you all think of my analysis? What was your favorite moment or least favorite moment of the movie as well? Leave your comments down below. Thank you all for stopping by my channel. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe if you are new here, and turn on that notification bell. I'm trying to build a community on here, and your support would be appreciated. We just hit 10,000 subscribers recently on the channel, and I hope that that number continues to grow. That's a wrap, folks. I hope everyone here has a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you all soon for the next video.